One is the story of a far-flung dystopia filled with hammy acting and action scenes galore. The other is also that, but like good. Judge Dredd. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And just getting right into the, introductory of summer here. The rain has been it's basically been like a constant back and forth effect for the last 3 weeks. It's like, oh, it's really nice. Ah!
Pretty much.
Yeah. At this point, I've fully acknowledged that basically all of these start off with us talking about the weather of our local areas, mostly because just every time it's so absurdly dumb.
Yeah, it's overcast now, and it's been overcast here for probably about half a week. Before that, it was really hot. I still go for my daily walks, but the other day I was doing it, and it started sprinkling while I was blocks away from my place, and I was like, you better not. And it didn't. It didn't, but I was worried it would. I just don't want to, these are like, it's not like I'm running, but they're for exercise. I don't want to carry an umbrella with me. And it was overcast, but it wasn't gray or anything. I was not expecting the possibility of rain. Yeah.
I have the benefit that basically all of my time spent outside is very short for whatever places I need to get to. And just because I'm not a very active person in general. So it's like, anytime it starts raining, it's like, well, I have maybe 30 seconds before I get to whatever location I need to get to anyway, so I'll probably be fine.
Yeah, we got some time. I'll be good. If only I had that. The life that I aspire to have.
I should go outside more. It's, my spine and my hips would benefit greatly.
Oh, jeez. Well, wow.
Yeah, no, I'm a very lazy person. If this show wasn't abundantly obvious about that.
Well, let's get into a bit. Let's talk more about your life, your personal life, especially here recently.
Yes. As far as stuff I have watched, not a whole lot of extra items. Like I said, continuing the Marvel marathon with Hannah. Just recently finished Civil War, and that was the first one that, for me, that was the first Marvel movie that I really was. After that one, I was just kind of like, I'm kind of done with these. This is kind of a stupid movie. The rest of them beforehand, even rewatching them, I kind of realized, you know what, I still like these pretty well enough. They're decently enough made. They're funny in most cases. But after this one, even Hannah, she turned me, after she was done, I was like, that's probably the worst one I've seen of all these so far.
You start seeing the machine.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just how it's just such a convoluted mess when you get right down to it. It's like, okay, so wronged dude who lost family in this whole Avengers attack is apparently second only to God in his ability to predict things and to discover things to benefit his goals. And it's just this whole long list of potential treachery and all these different bullshit things, and all these attempted messages is oh, are the Avengers truly this good? They get people killed, but that never really goes anywhere. It's just kind of oh, what if there was a problem? And then the movie goes, oh no, there's not, and that's it. It's just it very much is yeah, very have your cake and eat it too. So it was not amazing. Admittedly, for here, this is I think this will be phase 3 we're on now. From here, a lot of the solo movies are pretty good. This is when Thor Ragnarok came out and everything. um, and just a few of the other ones like Black Panther and that sort of thing. So once like they get into the solo adventures and everything, pretty good. But the next big team up one is Infinity War, and that one,
Oh
from what I
boy.
saw, because I never fully saw it, I just saw a bunch of scenes online. Um, and I get that I have the full gist of the movie at this point. Um, I was just like, man, this really just does not look good. Like, I genuinely just watch all that stuff. I was like, I'm glad I didn't pay money to see this. And so, like, once it gets into that stuff, I'll probably be pretty down on it again. And I'm sure even a lot of the other solo ones, I'm gonna be like, yeah, no, this wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was looking at their plan just the other day because it's constantly getting updated with things, and it's just like I can't believe on it. I know people like the Marvel, and we've complained about it on here, so I'm not going to go into all that. I still can't wrap my head around the fact that people have like looked at this calendar that Marvel Studios has been putting out and constantly updating and being like, "Oh, 2023, we're finally going to get that movie." I don't understand how people can get excited for that. Maybe it's just because I'm not into it specific. Maybe if it was something I cared about, I would be into it. It just seems so artificial, I guess, laying out such a framework like that. And
Yeah, it's, yeah, I think Marvel has pretty well hooked on to a pretty core fan base at this point, and it's just, and like, and you really did put it the way I never really thought to put it. It's like how artificial it all feels. It's like, this is the scheduled, this is the scheduled next hit blockbuster. You will praise it, and it will win all the awards that don't matter, and just some other bullshit. It is gotten kind of tiresome, and I seriously predict that one of two things is going to happen. Either it's just going to completely run out of steam and everyone's just going to stop caring and there's no amount of trying to inject more energy into it that will do anything, or it'll kind of come back around and to the point where it'll lose like that kind of widespread popularity that Disney and everybody wants it to have. And so I think a lot more of the further movies will have a lot more of the independence that the earlier movies got to have, because like so many of the movies now, it's basically like the directors are basically just given a pre-made script at this point. I essentially, and they were just like told like, oh, work with this. And so I predicted like once Disney like stops giving a shit about it, that a lot of directors will actually get a hand in to just make better films in general.
mm-hmm.
They just probably won't be as like universally popular, but I think if that's the case, I think it'll kind of be a more natural fit for the whole situation.
Yeah, and another thing is that I have never liked the way they name their movies because it's just the property,
Yeah.
and that's understandable to a degree. But when you're like a big studio and it's like, okay, so we're gonna people like Moon Knight, they're turning around on Moon Knight. So what should we call the movie we give him? Well, Moon Knight. Ironheart, Blade, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, it doesn't matter, just the name of it. There's a Groot movie in development that's just I Am Groot. Okay, that's the title. That's what he says. Sure. Whatever.
Also, there's going to be a Blade movie? Well, new Blade?
A new Blade, yes. I don't think it has any, announced date, but I do remember seeing that. And the other thing I saw, the first Avengers thing that I've seen yet that I actually am kind of interested in is I guess they're working on a What If movie, which would probably be based on the What If lines. I hope that's like... Do you know anything? I'm hoping it's an anthology movie.
I think it's a series. Like it's going to be another Disney Plus series.
Oh, well, I don't care. But
I think it's mostly, I think like from the brief snippets I've seen, it looks like it's going to be animated. Because like with one of the I think they released way back like when they announced I think Phase 4 essentially or something around when they released like all the info about like WandaVision and like the Winter Soldier and Falcon shows. There's I think like a very brief snippet where it showed like Peggy Carter holding like as Captain America essentially, but like I guess Captain Britain. And it's just like but it was all animated. It was like it looked pretty cool animation style at the very least.
If it's animated, I might look into it then. I mean, I like plenty of live action shows, but none of the Marvel things have interested me. I still haven't even looked in. I still haven't even watched WandaVision, but I get the gist of it. I've seen enough footage online to know what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, I guess besides that though, I don't really care. I was just hoping it was an anthology film because I really miss those.
I think it will technically be an anthology. It's just going to be like a TV
Right,
like a series rather than a movie. So
I long for the days of Creep Show.
I know you do.
But yeah, Marvel cast aside, I guess.
Yeah. I think I think beyond that though, I don't know if I've actually watched anything else as far as movies go. I've wanted to. I really just haven't had a lot of motivation to watch a lot of different things right now. I haven't found a huge listing of things that I've had a deeper desire to see. I've continued to play games and everything. Continued to play Skyrim, which was very fun for one of the characters in one of the movies we're watching today. But I'll get to that when that happens.
Yep.
But I've also started replaying a game that I actually played the hell out of a while back before, but I only recently rediscovered, called Rebel Galaxy. It's a little bit of a janky game. It was originally a PC game, but it got ported to PS4. And it's basically just like Wild West meets naval combat meets sci-fi. And it's basically just you're a dude in a ship with like broadsides and all these extra turrets, and you just fly around this like really flat like solar sector and everything, and just start doing like random missions and like bandit missions and all this different stuff. And it's just like, it's pretty basic, but it's weirdly addictive. It's just fun. Just like I'm just going through and just wrecking shop, and it's not fucking easy. Like I played, like there's this obviously a main story you can follow along, but I think I spent the first 10 hours I've been on it just doing like side missions and everything, and just like building up a bunch of cash to get better ships. But even then, like 3 further missions I went in, it was already being challenging again. It's like, holy crap. like what the hell is this difficulty curve? And also it might just level up as like you level up your ship, but it doesn't seem like it does, because it has mission like difficulty levels, and it goes down if you take the time to upgrade your ship. But so far I've gotten about the best equipment in the current sector, and the missions are still really hard. So it's at least entertaining.
All right, well, yeah, if it's fun, then why not do it? As long as it's not like, if you're having fun with like a pay to win thing. But besides that, if you're having fun, then I
yeah, I mean, it's not even a pay thing. It's fully single player. So
yeah,
no, it's a damn good time. But yeah, that's been the bulk of my time. That, either Skyrim or another one whose name I've completely oh yeah, I played through BioShock 2.
Oh yeah,
which like I'd never played it before. I played the hell out of BioShock 1. Just because it's BioShock 1.
Yeah.
Second one, not so great.
It's annoying. BioShock 2 is obnoxious.
It's annoying, and it doesn't have any of the kind of cool like philosophical edge to that the first one had. Like, it sort of goes into it, but doesn't even come close. I thought it was decently fun. The action was at least kind of different from the original. It was nice being able to like have the mechanics that you end up getting in, that you eventually just have offhand in BioShock Infinite, which I still think is the best of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not story wise, but the gameplay is the best.
I'll say that BioShock 2 does a really good job of pulling you in at the beginning. At least I think it did. It just loses you very quickly. It's just like the moment you walk, quote unquote, outside into the ocean, you get to walk around. I was like, oh, how much of this is there going to be? And so there was some wonder there, and just exploring the desolated environments, which is just the same as BioShock 1, really.
Which is shocking
locations.
Which is shocking to think about, considering it's been a full decade since like the story like really kicked off and everything started going to hell in the city. It's like, how is there anything that still has air? What the hell? Yeah. So it's like, it definitely, like, even the first one stretched disbelief plenty, but the second one was like even further to the point of like, okay, there's no reason this city is still even slightly buoyant.
Yeah. So. I think that's why they're like, let's move it to a different atmosphere, I guess.
Instead of capitalist, it's just racist.
Yeah. Well, I meant instead of the bathysphere, they're in like the stratosphere. But yeah, that too.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Literal atmosphere and yes, thematically.
I hope they make a new one. I have no idea what they do with it, but it'd be kind of cool to see what they can do. Like the guys behind those games are creative as hell, so
it'd be nice.
I'm trying to think of like what other possible like crazy city location they could have. Maybe like underground or something.
Ooh, that would be interesting. They could explore a lot more of the claustrophobia.
Yeah, that's true.
Like tunnels and stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Hey, Irrational Games, call us.
Hire me.
Hire me also. But like also let me keep my other job because like I need other prospects and stuff, and it's technically illegal to be moonlighting, but whatever. Anyway, that's my long-winded. Yeah, that's my long-winded, like recollection of what I've done in the past few weeks. What about you?
All right, so I got a couple things, but before that, we've been getting steadily more and more interactions on the Instagram account.
Cool.
And I would just like to read comments for two particular posts. I won't actually call out any of the usernames because I wouldn't feel right without contacting each of them individually, but I'll just read the comments.
Yeah.
In the first one, I posted sort of promotional art for the Stanley Tucci Searching for Italy show, which you had mentioned you had been watching.
Yeah,
so
great show.
I posted that, and we got some comments on that basically were like, fabulous show. Please bring on a season 2. I watched the whole series and absolutely loved it. Love the show. Keep it up. Things like that. Oh, people really like this show.
Yeah.
Like this Searching for Italy. Maybe I should watch it. And then the other thing, I posted the movie poster for Fanboys, the Ernest Cline movie that I had mentioned I had watched, unfortunately. And the comments on that are, fuck, I love this movie. Great flick. Great film. Great freaking movie. Even had me shedding a tear at the end. So, basically, what I want to say there is, clearly, there's no accounting for taste. Whenever I bring things up. My opinion is my own. I respect those people's opinions, but there's a reason that he keeps writing books and that there's an Armada movie in development. A lot of people still like his stuff somehow.
I don't need to respect their opinions. I think they're incorrect.
They are just straight up wrong.
I think you have objectively created a wrong opinion about this, and I invite you to think otherwise of this property. Or anything connected to this man.
That's fair.
God. Of course, I think the one, like, I've joked before, like, I don't really care what, like, kind of fan bases I piss off or whatever the hell, because, like, I know my opinions can be divisive, but, like, not as divisive as most opinions, but, like, still. But I realize now that, like, the apparent resilience of Ernest Cline fans is nothing to put my nose up at, so it's like, maybe I don't need to piss them off. It's like the fact that they have been able to put up with this shit for this long means they have a bulletproof exterior. It seems like.
Yeah, don't wanna. Yeah, I would want to fight one of them.
Unstoppable force meets very movable object, which is me.
Fantastic way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's all I wanted to bring up. I thought that was humorous because it was within a couple of days of each other. It's like, oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Not just the fact that those two piled up those comments, but the types of comments they received. You could really tell the difference. Mainly in that a lot of the comments on the Fanboys poster had "fuck" in the comments, like "fuck, I love this movie." That's telling.
Yeah, that's telling. That's fantastic.
Oh, but anyways, as for what I've actually been doing, I watched
Yes.
two new movies this time around, both animated. One came out about a month ago, I guess, and one came out, I think, in fall of 2020. But the first one of those is I watched Mitchell's versus the Machines because
Oh yeah.
I like. I can't say I've disliked anything that Phil and Lord have done.
Mm-hmm.
Everything they've done has been great. They did Spider-Verse, they did the Clone High run, they did I have not seen Lego Movie, but I've heard good things. It doesn't seem, just seeing clips, it doesn't seem like I'd hate it, even if it's not for me. So
I think I've talked on this show before, but I love it to death.
yeah, they just make great output, I think. And I really did like Mitchell's versus the Machines. I was a bit worried about it going in based on the trailer, which I think is the same thing that happened with Soul. Just it made it seem like parents can't connect with their kids because of technology, and that's really not what it is at all.
Oh, that's nice.
That's like there's like combined in the movie, I think 2 minutes of like you're on that phone all the time, blah, 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 but it really doesn't go anywhere. It just plays into a much deeper emotional issue that is separating this father from his daughter, and that's such a minor point in it. And obviously, like, it's even in the title and in all the trailers, technology is the villain of the movie, but it's really not like a boomer style thing, which is what I was worried about. And I think that's handled really well. The two main things I want to bring up, though, is that aside from the story, it's obvious anything that they do looks great.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck, the actual design style of everything, and because there's a lot of internet meme stuff in it, not like calling out direct memes or anything, so it's not, disgustingly hard to look at, but just the editing styles that are used, it's crazy. I'm a huge fan of it. Like, they use weird wipes, and there's like cartoons that pop up on the side of the screen like you're watching Lizzie McGuire. It's really interesting, and I enjoy that aspect of it. And we'll even talk about it a bit today. I hate it when new movies demonstrate like new technology, and it's always with this weird blue. We discussed that at length on the Total Recall episode, but everything's always like blue filtered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, but how they handle their technology, it's so interesting. It's all this red and purple and like neon green. The colors are really vibrant, and I appreciate that. It gives a real unique look to a lot of this this technology that's running amok in this sort of dystopian future that is starting to create itself, and with such a vibrant palette. I'm a huge fan of that. I wish movies would try to experiment with colors more, and it really made me think about like Disney and Pixar in general, especially since I just watched Raya and the Last Dragon just a couple months ago. It's like it looks nice, but they don't. The closest they come to trying to try and experiment with like those designs and those colors are these brief, like little 2D animated segments in Raya and the Last Dragon, but when it's all the regular stuff, they don't go for any of that. It's like, yeah, this is a cartoon, so it's animated, but it looks as realistic as it can within the style. And I don't know, I think I'm just kind of tired of that.
Yeah, I do like that more and more places, it seems like, are trying to experiment with more of this stuff, and especially this studio that you're talking about. So, hope for the future.
Exactly.
Tentative hope for the future, obviously, but still. I definitely think, like, I don't think it'll ever get as bad as, like, people think of, like, oh, it'll only just be Disney productions all the time, because, like, even, like, now people get tired of Disney, and people are like, all right, like, they're just kind of like, all right, I think we're good. So, I'm sure animators like this will always kind of rise to the top.
Right, exactly. And, I mean, they haven't stopped yet. I think they're in the pipe developing a new Clone High series. I don't know if they're working on any theatrical projects, but I'll be there for it because they haven't upset me yet.
That'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah,
Hannah and I,
awaiting
Hannah and I have still not actually watched the show, but we do quote the JFK character constantly. So it's just
yeah.
just consistently doing bad like Nantucket accents. I knew we need to watch it, but like I'm sure we'd watch it and be like, man, this is only slightly JFK.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's in the main cast, but I think there's only like one episode that's even based on him. Or based around his character. So, but it's also short. It's like 13 episodes, so and it's all on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
But yeah, anyways, and the other thing I'm not going to talk about a whole lot is another animated movie. I remember seeing one trailer for it, but then it kind of disappeared. It called The Willoughbys. It was based on like some Lois Lowry book or Lowry book, and it's fine. It's decent. It's decent to look at because it's taking its own risks. Characters are strangely proportioned and things move weird, which is decent. But it's hard to get into because it barely has a story. Things just like happen. That's hard for me to explain. Like they'll pick up a plot point and then immediately something else will happen while they're in the middle of that plot, so they'll just forget about it. And I'm like, well, what about the thing that was just happening? Are you going to go back to that at all?
It's my general playthrough of Skyrim.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Skyrim movie. But I don't know if that's how the book was because I never read the book. But if it is, then that's probably not her best work.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of those kind of books don't necessarily translate well to movies.
It doesn't seem that way, no. The one thing I'll give it is that that being said, it is unpredictable. I had no idea what was happening, even though the plot is fairly generic. It's like kids want a home. That's it. But I never really knew what was going on. And they even... It's weird because they go for this sappy sort of ending, and then completely turn it on its head and make some of the characters just like unredeemable assholes in a way that I was not expecting from an animated kids movie. But I don't know that justifies the strangeness and the lack of focus that the movie has, but that was at least interesting. Which is more than I can say for a lot of things. But that's pretty much all I have to say on that. And then, I mean, as far as games go, I've pretty much been focused on new Pokemon Snap since it came out.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I've been trying to complete that. It's a lot of fun to play through one time, but Pokemon Snap on the N64 is decent to complete because they don't have a bunch of, like, challenges and weird things to do. It's hard to explain. The scoring system is practically identical between the N64 version and then this new Switch game in that they're very loose, and so sometimes you don't understand why one photo is harder than another, or is higher score than another, I mean.
Yeah.
But to the N64 version's benefit, it also didn't have a bunch of challenges and like scores you had to reach, whereas the Switch version does, which makes the loose scoring system all the more infuriating because you never know what's going on or why.
Yeah, I think that's a very big hallmark of, I feel like, of a lot of modern games like that like are trying to update from like earlier formulas, especially with Nintendo. It's like it tries to add this like a modern video game challenge, and it just kind of ends up breaking itself.
I don't like. Steph was actually texting me the other day, and she's like, "I don't get what's going on. I'm trying to get a picture of this thing, and they look fine, but he won't take it. And then I suddenly got one where the Pokemon is completely obscured by kelp, and you can't see what it's doing." And he took it. And that's because the way the scoring system is set up, that fish or whatever that she was trying to get a picture of was doing a special action behind the kelp. And that even though she couldn't see it doing that action, the camera knew that it was doing it. And there's just things like that aren't user-friendly, that make no sense, and they isolate people. And it's fine in the original game because there's not that much importance on it. It's the journey. There's not a bunch of challenges and shit. Just take pictures of Pokemon and you're done.
Yeah.
But
it's like, I really don't like this more modern video game. Like, and I also blame a lot of it on players, because like it's stuff like Animal Crossing and everything where they add all this new stuff and there's all these like product deals and everything that people are absolutely going ballistic over. Like just recently they released all these different kinds of like makeups and everything that were released towards it that Hannah was obsessed with. Like the site they released it on, it got so much traffic it constantly was crashing. Like I had to like buy it for her because like just no one was able to get through. And like they released these like amiibo cards and everything, and those like you could only get at Target, but Target released them poorly, and apparently everyone was like all pissy about that because Target like just wasn't aware of how they were supposed to release them. And I'm just looking at all this like thinking about like fucking chilling out with animal friends and like going fishing. What the fuck is y'all's deal? I really just, and I know the whole thing of it's like, oh, you're supposed to play it how you want to play it, but like I'm really getting tired of this whole like obsessive nature with games of like I have to do it in this perfect aesthetic way, otherwise it is being played wrong, even when it's games where the whole point is to play it relaxingly and as you want to do it. And so it's just like, if y'all wanted this, just like draw a picture or write a book or like something. Just like I feel like you're just abusing this poor cute game like mechanic for your own like Instagram post or some shit.
Yeah,
it's like I just can't get behind it. Just this whole obsessiveness to it.
I never got the whole amiibo thing to begin with, the actual figures. Like, I understand the principle behind it and they're collectibles. I couldn't imagine, like, trying to go out and get all, Golden Mario's online for $600, but there's only 20 of them, I gotta get it. Like, I have 5 amiibos here in my little game room where I record this, and they're all it's just all the Shovel Knight amiibos, because I'm a big fan of that game. And that's it. Like, I can't imagine trying to get all those and try to get all the Animal Crossing, like, cards and just the little I don't get it. I don't get it, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah. I just hope this kind of dies down a little bit, but I know it won't, because, like, this is among the many reasons I will never truly consider video games as an art form, because, like, there is a mentality of it that you can do it objectively correctly since it has gamified mechanics, and so it's not technically an art form. So it's always going to have that element of people just obsessing over it. Like, you don't see people obsessing over like the correct way to make like paintings or books or that sort of thing. At least not people we consider to be like the normal community.
Yeah.
Whereas with video games, whereas video games, most of the normal community is like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess I consider games art in like a very general sense, but I am never going to be on the front lines of like arguing for it to be considered an art form, because who the hell cares?
Yeah. So yeah, that's just a lot. So, and that's why the new Pokemon Snap is bad. Or whatever. I don't know.
If you're gonna play new Pokemon Snap, fucking rent it. I would not. It's weird because is a $60 price tag justified? I guess so. It plays well enough. It's decent to look at. It's a Pokemon game, and there's tons and tons of content. But I can't see anyone who isn't crazy like I am actually wanting to do all these challenges and bullshit. So it's really, I would just rent it.
That's a good point. If I get the chance, I might. But I probably won't, honestly. I'll just see people like reacting to it online and be like, okay, that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But
and now our vitriol's all up.
We live in a dystopia already, and now we gotta go visit another one.
Oh, God. 2 distinct ones. Oh, God. Yeah. One being filled with dark, grungy environments and horrible, like, drug lords and all those sort of things, and the other one has Rob Schneider.
Oh, God.
This is Judge Dredd. God help us all. So, kicking off our dystopian nightmare journey with including the man himself, we'll begin in 1995 with Judge Dredd, directed by Danny Cannon. Sorry, I'm about to say Cranton. That's completely wrong. I wish I could read. By the 2080s, much of Earth has become uninhabitable wasteland. While some humans manage to survive in the barren, quote-unquote, cursed Earth, the majority of humanity resides in huge megacities, with populations ranging into the tens of millions. To combat crime, the traditional justice system has been replaced by a corps of judges, whose role combines those of police officer, judge, jury, and executioner. In Megacity 1, in the year 2139, Joseph Dredd, played by Sylvester Stallone, one of the most dedicated quote-unquote street judges, which is to say basically a beat cop, assists first-year judge Barbara Hershey, played by Diane Lane, in ending they call a block war, basically just people on other sides of a street shooting at each other. Herman Fergie Ferguson, played by Mr. Rob Schneider himself, a hacker recently released out of prison and now on parole, is caught in the middle of the firefight and hides inside of a food dispensing robot. Dredd arrests Fergie for destruction of property and sentences him to 5 years imprisonment. Meanwhile, Rico, played by Armand Assante, which is a very lovely name, a former judge, escapes from prison with the help of one Judge Griffin, played by Jürgen Prochnow. I think it's Prochnow. It's either German or Swedish. Yes, with the help of Judge Griffin. He then returns to Megacity 1 and reclaims his uniform and lawgiver gun, the signature gun of judges. He also finds and reactivates a decommissioned giant warrior combat robot. Also, meanwhile, Vardis Hammond, played by Mitchell Ryan, a news reporter critical of Judge Dredd, is murdered, and Dredd becomes the chief suspect of the murder. Dredd is taken to a trial before a tribunal of council judges, including Griffin and Chief Justice Fargo, played by Max von Sydow, who also happened to be Judge Dredd's mentor. Dredd is found guilty as his DNA is found on the bullets used to kill Hammond, a feature of the lawgiver imprinting the user's DNA on each bullet, a fact apparently unknown by most judges. Because that's a thing, apparently. To save Dredd, Fargo steps down as Chief Justice and, as his last request, as befitting of his position, asks the council to spare Dredd's life. Dredd is instead sentenced to life imprisonment, while Fargo embarks on what's called the Long Walk, in which a retiring judge ventures out into the wasteland to quote-unquote bring law to the lawless. Griffin, who had actually freed Rico in the first place from prison in order to frame Dredd for the murder, becomes Chief Justice and instructs Rico to cause chaos in the city in order to expand the power of the judges. Dredd is taken out into the Aspen penal colony by airship, where he is sealed next to Fergie again, somehow. However, the Angel Gang, a family of cannibalistic scavengers and bandits, shoots down the airship and brings Dredd and Herman back to their cave. A squad of judges investigate the ship and get to the cave, intent on killing any survivors, not instead of rescuing them, as they are still working for Griffin and therefore need all of the witnesses destroyed. Fargo arrives just in time to save Dredd's life, but Mean Machine Angel, yes, that is seriously his goddamn name, it's fucking fantastic, played by Christopher Adamson, mortally wounds Fargo. Fargo, in his dying breaths, reveals that Dredd and Rico are actually of the result of what's called the Janus Project, an experiment in genetic engineering intended to create the perfect judge. Dredd deduces that Rico had framed him for the reporter's murder, using their identical DNA, as they are clones. Believing Griffin is trying to reactivate the Janus Project, Fargo urges Dredd to stop him. Back in the city, Rico terrorizes the city and assassinates judges in various ways. Griffin uses the situation to convince the Council of Judges to unlock the Janus files, and with it he plans to create an army of judges from his own DNA. After the Council Judges unlock the file, Griffin has them killed. Dredd and Fergie sneak back into the city and meet with Hershey, who had also discovered the Janus Project for herself. They go over to the Statue of Liberty, where the Janus laboratories are hidden, because of course they are. They, along the way, however, encounter the giant robot that had been resurrected earlier, who wounds Fergie and captures Dredd and Hershey. Rico uses his own DNA as a template for the new Janus clones, then commands the giant warrior to kill Griffin. Fergie, despite his wounds, disables the giant warrior robot as Dredd fights Rico, while Hershey fights his assistant, Dr. Hayden, played by Joan Chen. Rico, in desperation, activates his clones prematurely, but they end up failing to stop Dredd, who then, in turn, destroys the facility. Dredd pursues Rico to the very top of the Statue of Liberty, and a final struggle sends Rico falling to his death. Having recorded the entire event, Central, the city's controlling supercomputer, which has been part of this entire time, but it really wasn't necessary to bring up to this point, broadcasts the information, clearing Dredd's name. The remaining judges ask Dredd to become the new Chief Justice, but he refuses, preferring to remain as a street judge. Also, there's a whole thing going on where he has like a sort of love interest thing with Judge Hershey, but it's really inconsequential, so whatever. Now, moving right along to a very different toned movie, I might say, but we'll get into that, to the 2012 film just simply titled Dredd. Or by the poster, it would be Dredd 3D, but it's neither here nor there. Directed by Pete Travis. Pretty much the same setup as the, 95 one. Earth, giant, just, irradiated wasteland, yada yada yada, inside Mega City 1. Violent metropolis full of 800 million residents and 17,000 serious crimes reported on a daily basis, which is a lot. Yeah, only 4 assistant judges who act as judge, jury, executioner, yada yada yada. Anyway, getting right into it, Judge Dredd, this time played by Carl Urban, is tasked by his own chief judge with evaluating a new recruit by the name of Cassandra Anderson, played by Olivia Thirlby. Thank you. Who happens to be a powerful psychic who marginally failed the aptitude test in order to become a judge. In a 200-story slum tower block called Peachtrees, drug lord Madeline Mama Madrigal, played by Lena Headey, executes 3 rogue drug dealers by having them skinned alive, They are then infused with slow-mo, an addictive drug which reduces the user's perception of time to 1% of normal speed, and has them thrown down the atrium from the top floor, landing very violently at the bottom. Dredd and Anderson are sent in to investigate, and learn of a drug den which they raid. They arrest a thug named Kay, played by Wood Harris, whose Anderson's mind probe reveals to be the one that carried out the executions himself, and Dredd decides to take him in for questioning. In response, Mama's force seizes the tower's security control room and seal the entire building, using its blast shields under the pretense of a security test, to prevent the judges from leaving or summoning help. Mama orders Dredd and Anderson killed, forcing the judges to fight their way through dozens of armed thugs. Arriving at the 76th floor, the judges are assaulted by Mama and her men with rotary cannons, basically just chain guns, that rip through the walls, killing numerous civilians. The judges breach an outer wall and call for backup, now that they're able to get a signal. Meanwhile, Mama sends her henchman Caleb, played by Warwick Greer, to go out to search for the judges. When they meet, Dredd throws Caleb off the tower in full view of Mama. Dredd suspects Mama is desperate to keep Kay quiet and beats him for information. Anderson reads Kay's mind and learns that Peachtrees is a center for all of slow-mo production in the city and its distribution. Anderson suggests that they hide while awaiting assistance, but Dredd insists that they move up the tower and pursue Mama. Along the way, a pair of armed teens confront Dredd and Anderson, allowing Kay to disarm and overpower Anderson. Kay then escapes with her as hostage and takes her to Mama's base up on the top floor. While Dredd works his way towards Mama, she ends up calling in a group of 4 corrupt judges who are going to work for her, and it allows them into the building in order to hunt down Dredd. Dredd first encounters one of the members, but is suspicious that he does not ask about Anderson's status. Seeing that his cover is blown, the corrupt judge attacks Dredd, but is basically immediately killed. Meanwhile, Kay tries to execute Anderson with her own weapon, but the pistol's DNA scanner does not recognize him, and therefore explodes, taking his hand off. She escapes and later encounters another one of the judges, whom she promptly kills after reading her mind and learning that she's bad. Elsewhere, Dredd faces off with the 2 remaining judges, but ends up running out of ammo, killing one of them beforehand. He's subsequently injured and shot by the last remaining judge, but Dredd stalls him long enough for Anderson to arrive and take him down. Anderson and Dredd obtain the code to Mama's apartment from her computer expert, played by Donald Gleason, and end up confronting her. Mama tells Dredd that if she dies, a device on her wrist will detonate explosives on the top floors, destroying the entire building. Reasoning that the detonator's signal won't reach the explosives from the ground, Dredd forces Mama to inhale slow-mo and throws her down the atrium straight to her death. In the aftermath, Anderson accepts that she had failed her evaluation by getting disarmed, and therefore leaves. The chief judge asks Dredd about Anderson's performance. He responds that she has passed.
What a beautiful final moment.
Yeah, a lot of cool effects. A lot of nice, slow-mo effects, obviously, and it's kind of cool to have an in-universe explanation for a slow-mo scene.
Mm-hmm. Instead of just, Matrix did it, and we've been doing it ever since. So
Right, exactly.
But I'm sure we'll talk about it here soon. But first, let me get into the little segment I got. All right. We got 5 this time around.
Nice, healthy amount.
Yeah, sort of. They'd be split in half between the two if it was an even number. So first we have Angus McInnes plays Judge Silver in 95's Judge Dredd, and was Sergeant Whitman in 2004's Hellboy. We have Ewan Bailey, who was an Aspen guard in Judge Dredd 95. He was also a prison guard in 97's The Jackal. Late 90s, really big time for him to play guards.
I mean, it pays the bills, apparently.
Yeah, he had a lock on that market, man. And now, moving over to Dredd 2012, we have Domhnall Gleeson, who was Clan Techie? Clan Techie. I'm so stupid.
Oh, yeah, he's the techie for the clan.
I get that now.
Yeah, he does. I don't think he ever got a name.
The problem is that in my list, because I wrote code to generate my full circle from now on, his title in the credits is Clan Techie, but both are capitalized, so it took me like a second after reading that to realize what it was saying. But yes, he was the Clan Techie, as they say, in Dredd 2012, and he was Moon in True Grit 2010. He was the kid.
Yeah, he's one of the two brothers that they end up killing.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Moving on, Tamir Berjak, I hope that's correct, plays a bodyguard of Mama in 2012's Dredd, and he played a mercenary in 2018's Tomb Raider.
Cool. And
finally, we have Wood Harris, who played Kay in 2012's Dredd, and was Nandez in Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, I think I actually remember that guy.
Yep.
Weird, huh? I guess he likes his sort of gritty, dystopian future movies.
Yeah.
This one's a bit more hardcore, obviously, but still.
A bit. But yes, that is it for Full Circle.
Well, sweet. Well, I guess you mentioned at the top of this before we started that you probably have a more complex opinion about both these movies than I did, because if my stinger wasn't immediately apparent, I have a bit one-sided opinion this time around, but I'll let you go ahead and get into it, also so I can finally have a drink of water.
All right, so yeah, I'll go ahead and start this off. So I was aware of both of these and the concept of them, never read the comics beforehand, obviously. That's rarely the case with me anyways.
Yeah.
But I hadn't actually seen either of these. This was my first time watching both. And I gotta say, I don't like either of them, really. I really do not care for either of these movies. There are pros and cons that I've been weighing in my mind for each, but one of the reasons that I'm coming into this without a real... I'm sure it'll get there after talking to you about it a bit, but the reason I'm not really there is because I kind of dislike both of these movies for very specific reasons.
Okay. Well, now I'm interested.
So, with the 95 version, it has a lot of that, which we sort of talked about before going into the plot synopsis. We mentioned a bit, but it has kind of like an 80s syndrome where the movie feels like it's out of it feels like it's out of time, which is strange because it's a film from the mid 90s that is about a dystopian future, which is pretty common in the sci-fi genre.
Yeah.
But it's so structured like an 80s action film, and Sylvester Stallone being the lead really doesn't help that image.
Yeah.
So it gives off this weird vibe when I'm watching it. It's just like, this doesn't feel like this is a 90s movie.
I will say that there might actually be a reason for that. One of the trivia bits that I had found about this is that apparently the director, Danny Cannon, apparently Stallone himself actually had a lot of creative power over it, and apparently David Cannon himself became so disheartened with like how much control Stallone was trying to have over the creative process that he basically swore he would never work with someone like such a self-absorbed actor ever again. And he had mentioned, like, I think on multiple interviews apparently, that the final product basically looked nothing like he had originally intended. So I think the reason it feels like an action movie is because Stallone really wanted another action movie from the 80s.
Well, I mean, that's valid. It's not valid. It's shitty, but that would definitely explain it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for Danny Cannon, but
yeah.
I guess knowing that it definitely paints a fuller picture, but unfortunately, those problems I think are still there. I don't know how much that bothered you, but
oh no, it absolutely did. I 100% get what you mean. It feels like one of the, like it's doing the kind of thing that it feels like a lot of the modern, like, more recent Bond movies have done, where they're trying to recapture like a lot of the original like 60s and 70s camp of the like earlier ones, but trying to do it in a modern like framework, and it just does not work. Like, it's just like the 80s movies that are like the 80s action that were really famous just did well because it made sense at the time with what they were making, but just all the tech and like suit designs and set designs and costume designs on display in Judge Dredd, it's just really silly looking. Like, I've seen many a joke made about it before, but they're like the whole suit that Dredd is wearing, like Stallone's wearing the whole thing, like when he has all the pieces off, it just looks like one of those like skin tight like sports polos that like dude bros wear and everything, like when they're running and stuff, but they still want to look like complete douchebags. And the really plasticky metal, like what's supposed to be armor, but it's just like, okay, so you got shoulder pads that could like break a rhinoceros's back, and you've got a cod piece that could stop a bullet. It's just so stupid looking.
It's not like structured well either.
Oh like, yeah, no, like that's I feel like I should let that go the wayside.
the helmet. Like, the helmet itself, I don't think, for a dystopian future, it doesn't make... And of course, I don't think this is necessarily the movie's fault. This is the comic's fault.
Oh, yeah.
But, I don't know, having such a big open space underneath, like, you're protecting your brain, like your head, sure, but there's still plenty of, like, dead zones, it looks, not just on the head, but in various parts of the body where a bullet could totally hit you.
Yeah.
There's holes all over that thing so that you can move fluidly as an officer. It doesn't seem to be designed all that well.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where a comic can usually explain away things like that just in writing or in design. But, when you're making a live action movie, especially in a time before CGI fixes all of your problems,
yeah,
it's more apparent.
They definitely like improved on it a bit in the 2012 one, where it's like it looks like they're wearing like more like basically flak jackets, that like very advanced ones, obviously. Mm-hmm. But it still does not quite get away from the fact that the helmets are kind of silly looking. Carl Urban, I think, like, does everything in his power to make it not as bad, because, like, my God, the man can do some mouth acting. Like, I have never seen such a I've never been able to see a man's eyes scowl while just looking at his mouth. But lo and behold, Carl Urban is able to do it. But yeah, like all the other judges that show up whenever they talk and everything, they're trying to do the same thing. Like there's one of the corrupt judges, I swear to God, is trying to do like Stallone's face and like facial features. Like, it's the last corrupt judge that Anderson ends up killing.
Oh yeah.
Do you kind of see that, like, when like all the weird mouth that movement he does and like the weird sneering and everything?
I want to say yes, but also I feel like there's some scenes where I couldn't tell if Carl Urban himself was trying to imitate Stallone or not. So maybe I was just hyper looking for that.
I guess, yeah. I think he might also just be trying to do like more the comic version, because like Stallone's face, like, let's all be honest, Stallone's face can only ever do so many different facial features, for multiple reasons. But it definitely seemed like Urban was going more for the comics, from like what little stuff I've seen about the comics. It's just like the comic Dredd is somehow even more scowly than any of the movie characters, because it's like, holy shit, it looks like a parody of a human being whenever he's frowning in all those images I've seen. So it definitely seems like he's going more towards that, of just like that harsh, just like mouth movement.
Okay, I can take it
rather than Stallone specifically.
I'll take that.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like it is like they are definitely both still silly, which I think even the comics acknowledges it. Like, it's meant to be like absurd level shit, but it's weird seeing how both of them react to that. Like, 95 is trying to have like this one tone of like an action movie with a bit more hopefulness and everything. The 2012 one is basically just grimdark. the far-flung future, there is only war.
Yeah, it's disgusting. But people also want their somewhat happy endings, which I get. I've never been fully on that train, but I at least understand it. So the other thing with the 95 version is, we'll just get into it, is Rob Schneider is, sort of and that's more of the 80s thing showing through. It's not restricted to the 80s, but it really pulls home that action, almost like a buddy cop thing, which I guess was becoming more prevalent in the 90s in movies. But it had already been on TV for decades. And that's that, Rob Schneider is the wisecracking sidekick that sort of gets pulled along and roped into it and is, quote-unquote, redeemed at the end of the movie. But just some of those lines, like, it so disruptive of the tone of the movie. Like they're having this intense moment after they make it back from their exile. And he's confronted by what is her name? Shit. He's confronted about it. Yeah, he's confronted by Hershey about his brother in the photo, and Rob Schneider comes in. He's like, "I fixed your microwave. Want popcorn?" I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me with this?"
Yeah, this is definitely like one of the movies where this is like people make jokes about that and parodies about that sort of thing, of like, oh, the comedic relief character that just doesn't work. This is as close to a parody as I've ever seen without it actually being a parody, where it's just like, what is the honest to God point of this? It's just, I think there is an extended period of time where I really do think, if you like re-edit a few things, you could completely cut his character out. Like, he saves Dredd like from the giant robot at the end.
That's it.
But that's it. That's the only thing that's actually could be considered plot consequential when you get right down to it. But even then, it's fucking Judge Dredd. He could have absolutely destroyed a fucking giant robot. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Which, incidentally, that giant robot didn't really do a whole lot much in the movie either.
He did nothing at all, actually, except for ripping off that one judge's arms. Right?
Yeah. And like it also takes part in, like, killing other judges, like when Rico's going crazy, but it's like He was doing just fine with the bombs. So it's like, again, it's another of those things you could have completely cut it out and it wouldn't have affected anything.
The one thing I'll say is that it looks really cool, and I am a total sucker for stop motion anything, so...
I thought it was a puppet.
Was it? It looked stop motion in a lot of those scenes.
I think maybe some of it may have been stop motion, but I think otherwise, like whenever it's on screen with other characters, it's fully puppeted.
Well, I can believe it when it's on screen. I'm thinking of whenever we get like shots of, I don't know, Rico talking with it and you see its face. Like, the way the neck moves, I'm like, that is, like, you can see the frames cut out between the movement. But I can see them going for, like, a hybrid thing.
I imagine that's probably what they did.
Either way, I like practical effects like that.
Yeah.
And I've made it very clear in the past that that's my opinion on that. All of that being said, though, the general... Even as sort of stereotypical as beats of it are, I like the actual story of the 95 version a lot more than I like the story or the plot in the 2012 version. I really do. I found it much more engaging, and part of that might be the bottle effect that the 2012 version has, and I want to elaborate on that a bit, because there are some movies like 12 Angry Men that are mostly set in like sort of one encapsulated location that can still sort of hold your attention and, you know, use the most out of the surroundings. But I never got the feeling that the 2012 one was using its location to its fullest extent and just being trapped in this huge complex. I don't know. It gave off this claustrophobic sort of feeling that I wasn't fully on board with. Does that make sense?
I think
even
so.
If not agreeable.
I think so. Yeah, like I get what you mean. Like, that's definitely kind of at times a very incidental feeling that you need to have for a movie. So yeah, I get why it might not be. I get why it might not be great to, you know, for an enjoyable levelness for the movie. It
has great interpersonal relationship moments due to that, though, I will say.
I do like that.
Yeah, when I'm sorry, I'm having problems with all the characters' names. Anderson, I think. That's fine. When Anderson is sort of like talking to the criminal and like diving into his head and things like that, and just like when they first sort of get there, and he and Dredd is still, you know, doing the test, and they're all in that tight knit room, where he's like, "All right, give your analysis. This is the point of this test." You know, like things like that. I think it benefits. But then when you start getting into the action of the story, I've always had problems with story. Definitely not just this movie, but with stories where it's like, okay, they've made it to this floor. Lock the elevator. Now they're trapped there. I don't know. I don't find that the most engaging, I guess.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments in it where it was just kind of like, okay, now we're here. Action scene to transition us to next location. Action scene as we are now stuck in this new location. It's like, it's a very start and stop kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's kind of like it's like the first time playing a D&D game.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's
it's like
definitely
Dredd and Anderson are being railroaded into Mama's
exactly,
story.
Yeah. And like, I definitely like it to a point. Obviously, like you said, it does feel very railroady at times, and I'm definitely not like with my stinger. I feel like I show my hand a bit too like black and white. There definitely are plenty of problems with Dredd, and I think that's kind of the center of it for me, for the problems of it just kind of being like, we could have a more dynamic situation here, but because of like the environment we've created, it's kind of impossible. I do still think it lends itself well to this story, and I do think the story is very cool, mostly just for the fact of, I think the 95 one was just trying to do too much with what it had, and like, I know that's absurd coming from the Judge Dredd comics, which are about as absurd as it gets before you hit like Warhammer 40K levels. With just its whole like, dark future dystopia bullshit. But it's just like, it just in the end really just uses it as a backdrop for like another kind of like generic, oh, there is hope for humanity, and this like whole idea of like what is, is the law a truly black and white thing? Is a truly like, living thing, or that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Where it sort of like dances around that idea, but it never really does anything with it. It's just kind of like, they constantly are just going on and on about the law and everything. Yeah, it's like, stop your timers for like how long it took for me to fucking do an impression of that. But it really just kind of putzed around with it, and it like was trying to have a bunch of different messages and all these like different action scenes or like dramatic beats that it just didn't work out. Like consistently, a lot of the characters just do really stupid shit. Like they'll try to do like to take down a character, or they'll put themselves in a really bad position that immediately gets them screwed over. Like one of them, the Judge Griffin character, like you mentioned, got his arms ripped off and all. He literally like when he like figures out Rico is turned on him, he literally turns around, walks closer up to the giant death bot, and only then pulls out a gun and aims it away from the giant death robot towards Rico. And then the robot just picks him up and kills him. It's like, what the fuck was that? You literally just why didn't they just set the scene up differently? Why did you have to show us this guy just doing the stupidest shit he possibly could have done? And there's a lot of like smaller scenes like that, it feels like, but that's like the most like apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I feel like the 2012 one definitely like keeps itself a bit more, it very literally keeps itself more focused with its whole like setting. And I think it kind of does more with less as a result. And I think it's really all it was trying to do. And I can respect that at the very least.
Right. I think that something I do appreciate from the 2012 version is that both films attempt to, do world building with this future landscape that they're in. Due to the confined nature of 2012, it's less about the setting and more subtle ways. I think it's more subtle in its world building, whereas the 95 Judge Dredd tries to do these landscapes with the city and like how everything's constructed, all that. Buildings and lights and technology and robots walking down the halls and labs. And the 2012 one doesn't concern itself so much with that, and it does it in more subtle ways with sort of, I guess the drug isn't necessarily subtle because it's a point in the plot. Whatever it's called. I can't even remember the drug name now.
It's literally just slow-mo.
Slow-mo, yeah.
Yeah.
And like when Anderson saves Dredd near the end of the movie, he has this cool suture thing that he uses. And I was that's really cool. Yeah, like an auto suture device. That's neat. And they just do things like that. And that I do appreciate. I think that's a much better way to do world building in a movie, especially if you're going to restrict yourself to a single location. You have to get it in there somehow for audiences that aren't familiar with this world you're adapting. It's even worse if you're not adapting a world, because then you're like, well, why does this have to be in the future?
Right, exactly. Which I do, like, I think to that end, I actually think that I highlighted another actual problem I have with it, because, like, it does do it in a lot of subtle ways, and I do like it for the same reasons. But at the same time, the subtlety it has with it, it really doesn't lend itself to the kind of chaotic world that I will say that 95 definitely sets up better.
Mm-hmm.
The introductory scene we have with Dredd of him, like, on his motorbike and he's taking down, like, other criminals, it just kind of looks like he's just kind of in, like, a crappy part of a city. Like, just a normal modern city versus the massive monolith that it establishes with, like, the intro and everything. So it ends up kind of losing a bit of the steam that the 95 one immediately builds up, which is the absurd city. And also with a fucking introduction by James Earl Jones, I never pointed out. It's like, holy shit, like, what? just James Earl Jones just rolls in, just giving the basic plot, background synopsis. And it's hard, like, and that was kind of the thing with the 95 one. I went into it, and with that as the setup and everything, and seeing, even with Rob Schneider, like, as the main dude, he seemed like it was kind of going for more of a, not necessarily a subtler approach, but definitely it felt like it was going to be more ingrained in the world that it has, like, with all the crazy shit it showed at first, like all the extra tech and like all the vehicles they were in and everything. I was like, okay, cool, we're setting up a pretty cool world that we're actually going to be interacting with in a cool, very like in-depth way. But then it immediately was just changed to really silly, like, over hammy acting guys shooting out of like windows, doing the whole like 80s 90s thing of bad henchmen doing, which is to say, holding a gun at the hip, crouching and holding it near their like about dick height, and then screaming while sticking their tongue out and just going like, wah, blah, 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 like the Tasmanian devil. I was just like, all right. And then all the judges roll in, they're wearing like fucking like morph body suits and everything. I'm just like, all right, never mind. It immediately lost me. It's just like, yeah, I think the 2012 one definitely did more with what it had from it to that end, but I definitely don't think it set up the world as well as it could have.
Yeah. I guess I just like I like the smaller approach because maybe their world building didn't seem as generic, I guess, is maybe what I'm leaning towards. Because even though there are all these cool set pieces and like I said, robots and stuff walking down I still think about the one robot that's like, everyone obey the law, buy a soda, whatever, that's like walking down the hall as Rob Schneider is making his way through the city. Like, things like that I think are neat. It's just a lot of it feels like, okay, this is your stock sci-fi, whatever. It doesn't feel like they go into a whole lot of it.
It seems like they went to a store and just got like a standard package. Exactly.
Like, are you sure this'll cover everything? I have some people coming over, and I need the robot. I need the doors that sort of shut on their own. I need,
Yeah, I need like everything to kind of look like H.R. Geiger was like sort of involved. It really just is that vague mix between Alien and Blade Runner and Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good way of putting it. The whole set of it being very generic. I guess that was kind of what I was getting. I guess it is in the end what I was getting towards, but I just didn't have a word for it.
Yeah, and 2012 maybe doesn't lean enough into it. Maybe I was just refreshed by the fact that they were even trying with some of the stuff. And again, this could all be stuff that was in some form of the comics, and I just don't know. But we're not talking about the comics, are we?
No, nothing more than like glancing looks at it.
So the other thing I'll say is this sort of goes back to the plot, the stories we were talking about it. I feel one issue I had, because now I've been praising 2012 for a while, I gotta bring it down. An issue I have with the 2012's story, just in general, versus 95's version is thematically, like you were saying, 95 is, again, pretty generic for the dystopian sci-fi genre. Like, what is a man? We have clones. What is good? What is evil? So a lot of that can be pretty overbearing. But I think the actual story of, the genetic cloning and him trying to make his own army of clones that, follow him, framing Dredd for this crime that he didn't commit, I feel like all of this sort of feels more science fiction, whereas the story that's set up, just this sort of criminal kingpin that has taken, sort of didn't even rise through the ranks, worked her way down, started at the top and then took out all the easier prey, which is funny. But, just sort of a kingpin that has control of drug stocks and all things like that. It doesn't feel like it's a story that it doesn't feel like the story had to be Dredd. It doesn't feel like it had to be in the sci-fi genre. I could have seen any number of like Nick Cage or Liam Neeson in that movie doing the exact same thing, just without sci-fi.
Yeah, and I definitely see what you mean there. Um, and I guess it kind of does go back on like what I talked about, where it really didn't establish its world that well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and apparently there had been actual plans to make an actual TV series off of the same universe from this movie, but sadly fell through. And I think if it had done, I think it would have been able to have more chances to be able to expand on that. I think this is a really good like tone setter more than anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really in the end it's just kind of like it takes basically the raid. You ever seen The Raid? It's just a kung fu movie essentially, but it's about guys raiding a building, like much like this.
Oh no, I haven't.
Um, it's like it's been. I imagine it was a big inspiration for this movie because its whole deal is like it's very balls to the wall, claustrophobic, beat 'em up action. I've seen most of it. It's pretty good. It's fucking brutal. Um, and I definitely see a lot of its influences in this one. And I think it really is just like, what if we took that concept of, you know, hero finds himself basically trapped in a den of animals and has to find his way out, and just kind of made it a bit even more. They just kind of turned it up, not necessarily up to 11, but like 10.5, where it's mostly just like, what if the building was super tall, which effectively, when you get right down to it, actually, it doesn't actually affect that much the fact that it's a literal 200-story building, which is like, if I remember, like the fucking Empire State Building is like 200 floors, maybe less actually.
There is no reason for the building to be that tall because they don't even explore a lot of the spaces except for the slow-mo like descent thing. I'm convinced that is the only reason.
And like I think it just is like it is playing into like the universe they're in. It's like I think those mega blocks are like canonically part of Dredd, but like you said, like to that end, like you said, it could have been really any plot or any other like background property for this, and it really didn't establish anything with the fact that it's 200 stories, because like we see them like climbing up a few flights of stairs like throughout the course of the action, but it's like they go from bottom to top with minimal like effort. Comparatively, it feels like, considering 200 goddamn stories.
Yeah. It was part of their training, I suppose.
I guess. And I think like maybe at some point they do hit an elevator, but I don't remember it. Yeah, no, there's a couple points where they're at an elevator, but a lot of the time it's just, they just end up having to walk.
Yeah, because Clan Techie has to shut it down.
Right, exactly. And so it's just yeah, I definitely agree with you that it really didn't lend itself to what it had. I do think though, like, I still think it did better with it than what 95 did, because I just couldn't get invested with 95. It's like, man, it's just people doing like weird, silly stuff and like trying to be all dramatic and dark and everything. Whereas this other one, it's like, man, these are two characters whose I've known basically nothing about their past or their general like morals and everything, but the interactions they've had and everything, it's like, I want these guys to win. Like, I like them.
I think I showed a bit of that early. I think a bit earlier when I was talking about sort of the interpersonal character moments that 2012 can really show off in that tight space. Also really lends it to the fact of what you were just saying. I think that overall the acting is just better in the 2012 version than it is the 95. Everyone in the 95 is either way over the top or they're not trying at all. And there's like no middle ground.
Yeah. With a possible exception of Max von Sydow, but that's because it's Max von fucking Sydow.
Yeah, exactly. And fucking Adrian Barbeau as the voice of the computer, the central computer system. Are you kidding me?
Really? Wow.
Did they really have to have such a big name actress do the voice of the I mean, it's cool.
This definitely
but
feels
I couldn't
like
tell.
This definitely feels like at the time it was probably one of those movies where they bragged about having all these like big names attached to it. Like even the fact like with like fucking James Earl Jones at the intro, it's like, yeah, this feels remarkably like they were just like stacking the deck.
Especially in 95, that's just already James Earl Jones well known for like Star Wars and shit, but this is only a year after Lion King too. So it's like, yeah, we got James Earl Jones in the middle. We got fucking John Carpenter's ex-wife doing the voice of the computer system.
Oh yeah.
We got Max von Sydow running around.
Like, good old Esbern himself. I told you I'd bring up Skyrim.
Yep, you did.
I don't know where else to go with that, but
We'll just let it sit there.
But yeah. But like, to that end, because I know you wanted to bring it up, I do feel like we do need to take the time to especially mention Mr. Armand Assante as far as acting goes.
I have to, you know what, I'll put his name in just in case. I don't think I've seen him in anything else, but I'm wondering how much of this is just his acting and how much of this was directed, because it is insane how much scenery he chews.
It seems like he chokes on it almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have actually ever seen him in anything else. But oh shit, he's
done voiceovers in some things that I've seen, but I don't think I've seen any of these live action things.
He played the main bad guy in Road to El Dorado.
Yeah, that's what I just
the priest
passed.
Guy. Yeah. That's the, I think, only other one.
Yeah, I haven't seen any. I mean, I've seen Striptease, but I don't remember it. I can't like name the characters in Striptease. So yeah, I can't tell you. I wonder if this was like from the director or something, or if I don't know. But it's way too much. It's distracting.
Yeah, I imagine most of it's him. Like, I don't think you can get to that level without that just kind of being your deal. And plus, every image I find of him, he's doing like this like crazy weird duck face image for the camera, and so it's like that's just kind of what he does, I think.
Yeah.
God, what a madman! And like, I gotta say, once I was trying to take the movie less seriously, anytime he was on screen, I was like, "Oh fuck yeah!" There's more entertaining insanity.
Well, I think at that point it's because you're not invested in the rest of the movie. It's like a light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, yeah. Rico's here doing his Jeremy Irons impression, brother.
Yeah. I just like all of them. Just like, God, the word law. It should not have as many syllables as these two main like dudes end up putting to them. Fucking, there's a combination of law and law.
I mean, at least for health,
that genuinely hurt my throat.
At least for health reasons, Stallone has a reason to pronounce things the way he does.
Yeah,
but Mr. Assante has no excuse, I think.
Yeah, I think it's just like that. Definitely, every image I see of him, that is definitely a man who did absorbent amounts of cocaine. Like, I definitely think he did some amount of either cocaine or speed or something for an extended period of time.
I mean,
my God.
It definitely, I kind of want to seek some of these other things out just to see him. Now that I've watched this, just be like, I'll go watch like Dead Man Down or Once Upon a Time in Brooklyn. Some of these things.
He played as John Gotti in a 1996 film, so that might be interesting, at least historically.
Oh, he won an Emmy for it, so.
Wow, damn.
Yeah.
Oh, holy crap! I have seen him before. He was in the 97 Homer's The Odyssey miniseries.
I have not watched that, but
we watched.
He was Odysseus.
Yeah, he was Odysseus. Yeah.
Wow.
We watched it, I think, in like one of my high school literature classes. He was actually really good in that, if I remember right. What the fuck? Who is this man? Oh my God. I think, maybe a lot of it was just the script, because I remember he was intense in as Odysseus, but he wasn't crazy.
And that's only 2 years after Judge Dredd. So, yeah. Oh my God, I have to watch this because Bernadette Peters is in it as Cersei.
Oh my God.
I love Bernadette Peters. Okay, I'm gonna watch The Odyssey.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that little aside on Assante cast.
I think we needed that.
I really do. Yeah, that was kind of just like a nice little aside. God, I almost like the 95 one more now.
I think.
God.
I mean, as exciting as that is, I think as we've talked, I think just in terms of like, this is strange because I always flip whenever we get near the end of these and start talking about which one we preferred. I always flip why I pick a film Because sometimes I'm like, well, this was more enjoyable. And then other times I'm like, well, this is just better. Yeah. So I'm conflicted because you said it was sort of a slog. I think I was more engaged with the 95 one just because of the absurdity of it. And I think if I had a choice in the future, I'd pick 95 over 2012. But I think 2012 is much better made. Really, the story and the world building are the only things that fall flat for me. But like, I like the acting. I like the character moments. I don't know. I'm conflicted. And you know what? The effects, they aren't overbearing on the effects either. There's some explosions, and then there's the slow-mo effect. But that's it. For a sci-fi movie, that might play partially into the world-building thing we were talking about, but for a sci-fi, especially this day and age, just in the previous decade, they really do not use as much, like, computer graphic effects as they could have.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons I like just how it looks so much more as well. Because it really just goes back to that, like how I said before. It's basically like less with more, which at times it does still feel like less. Mm-hmm. But it does end up lending itself better to the whole. It doesn't feel like they're trying to do anything absurd with it, and I think that's enough. And I think ultimately both of these things kind of come down to personal taste. Like, I'm definitely with the type, like, I will always prefer the smaller, not necessarily setting the world on fire film that was made with, like, a lot of dedication and a lot of heart versus the absurd, over-the-top things that, while crazy and at times engaging to look at, it's not really anything I was going to take on board with myself as whenever I consume something. It's like, it's the difference between eating, like, a really good sandwich and just, like, an entire bag of fucking popcorn.
I know what you mean. Like... I guess for me, it's usually like, it's not like I'm full in on just flashy whatever is happening, bizarre. Because like I don't know, like Avatar, I wasn't a huge fan of, and the Marvel movies I've never really gotten into. I think it's just, you know, down to deciding between two films. It's like, well, at least this one kind of visually kept me interested. But that being said. And you know what? Additional point for 2012, just going back to what I was talking about earlier in the podcast with Mitchell's versus the Machines. This is a sci-fi movie from the last decade that did not utilize that stock fucking everything is backlit with blue. They didn't do that. Oh, yeah. I actually really like that. It was sort of... It was like grungy, like one of those Mexican cartel films. You know, about someone stole all this money and killed my wife, and it's the drug cartel.
It's like if Sicario were batshit insane.
Yes.
It's like it's also like it's surprisingly colorful, honestly, which is surprising. Like, not excessively so. It's obviously mostly like burned oranges and everything, but. It's still like it has a bit more range than I would have expected.
And to its credit, that burnt orange is actually like part of the scenery and the setting. It's not like a fucking filter that they slapped on where everything, you know, like when you like what I just said, like Mexico, when you have a cast go to Mexico and suddenly everything is yellow. So props to 2012. You know what? This time I think I'm going to give it to the new one. I think the new one's better made, and I think the cast is doing a good job. I wish it did more with its actual world, but that's my only real gripe with it, is that the story felt kind of generic, and that's mostly due to the world building. But I think that's my only gripe, really.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, and like obviously, I went into this like showing it on my sleeve, pretty firmly, but I just can't get it into the style and like that sort of movie that 95 does. I know there's appeal to it, and I definitely think it does like I said before, and like we've mentioned, talked to death at this point. It does more with what it's given as far as a setting, but when it comes to the actual movie bit, it's not really much there to be said. Like we said, there are entire chunks of the movie, entire characters and like subplots that could really just be cut out wholesale and do almost nothing. Like, I really was thinking about it. If they cut out both the giant robot and Rob Schneider together, it would change nothing. Like, there might be like the moment of like, oh, what happened with Griffin, like that one judge, but they could easily have just like overshadowed it. No one would have noticed. He was barely a character as it was.
Rico could have done it with
Yeah.
I'm super strong because I was a clone, or I injected myself. Like, it could have been anything.
Yeah. It's just it's difficult to do anything about it other than just think like, man, what the fuck was going on there? Yeah.
And the thing is, I know that we disagree on RoboCop, as we already did that as an episode, but at least RoboCop had the satire of Paul Verhoeven backing it up.
Oh yeah.
It has more to it thematically as a science fiction film than Judge Dredd does. Period. Because Judge Dredd, like you said, Stallone kind of turned it away from a sci-fi film and made it more of an action piece.
Yeah. And, obviously RoboCop was still, like, in that midst of the 80s, and so it was just kind of very much part of that wave of, like, just really good action flicks and just people making really cool messages and everything. Yeah. And this one just didn't really do much of anything at all. If there was, I honestly, like, because so many of those action flicks, they do bring up genuine messages. Like, fucking people talk about Rambo being this whole big action flick and everything, but it's like, the first one, he only ever kills one dude, and it's talking about, like, the injustices that, like, veterans and everything and people with genuine PTSD are going through. It's just, like, brought up to a more absurd level, but that's kind of the point of those kinds of movies. Yeah. It takes modern problems and makes them absurd to make people realize where the problems are. Mm. And it's just... And it does, like, really cool things. And obviously RoboCop does that with, like, it brings up messages of, like, the, like, mechanization of crime fighting forces and, like, the hand of corporations and what should be private affairs for, like, the public citizenry and that sort of thing.
How the media portrays things.
Yeah. And, like, the whole struggle that Murphy's going through with depersonalization and all. It's like, all these action flicks, they're remembered for good reasons. Like, people remember, like, oh, they're, like, all these action flicks and everything, but the ones that actually are just action and everything, they never survive. Like, Judge Dredd's a point in that favor. Mm-hmm. I obviously don't think Dredd, like the 2012 Dredd, really does much either with any kind of message, but I don't think it's trying to, or at least it doesn't have the air of trying to. It's just trying to be like, hey, this is crazy and fucked up. Let's watch some cool action. It doesn't try to be anything more.
That's a really good point. I hadn't considered it, but thinking back on the movie, I don't think that Dredd has a message at all. Other than, obviously, good guy good, bad guy bad, but it's not like it's pushing for that either. It's just a story. And I don't really think there's anything behind it.
Yeah. It's like, I think it was mainly just trying to just set up this cool universe for like anything that might happen later down the line. Which I think that might have been one of the reasons it wasn't super well remembered and well received. It just kind of was. It was at the end really just an action flick, but it was just a well-made action flick, and that's good enough, honestly, for me. It's like like things obviously we have modern movies that do a lot, like Mad Max Fury Road and that sort of thing, like and a few other action flicks, that do end up kind of portraying messages that end up getting very well received. And so it's not like that idea of it is dead. It's just, it's not trying to be Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
So I do definitely like that it didn't try to do anything insane with what it had. It just is like, okay, here's a crazy setting. Here's two characters who are stoic and badass. Here's a bunch of crazy people they have to walk through. Watch it unfold. That's pretty much it.
Yep.
And it does it beautifully. Okay, well, grungily, but in a pretty way.
No. Yep. All right. I think that does it for the actual discussion. I think we sort of laid out our points pretty succinctly.
Yeah, I need to watch something like kind of like cute and frilly after this though. Like there's been a lot of dark shit and like just looking at the world at large. I'm like, really hope this isn't a prediction.
Yeah. Especially after the nightmares I'm sure you had after watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory last time. It hasn't been great.
Yeah, no, it's been a weird time. A little some weird fluctuations. Then I had to watch Civil War again. I'm like, ah, damn it all. It's just
And
like I'm gonna go. I gotta go find a nice little comfort zone for me. Like I'm gonna go watch The Men Who Built America. Some fucking all right. Let's go watch some old folks doing like really crappy manual labor things. I'm sure that won't ever fucking come up again. Ha ha ha
yeah.
Oh God, it's all time is a flat circle.
Well, yeah. Hey, well, I guess get comfortable in your comfort zone for as long as you can, because the next two movies we're talking about on the show, they aren't the brightest either. So,
It'll be fun. Just I just need a saline drip of nice historical fiction.
Yeah,
or just historical, I guess.
I gotcha. Well, go watch Gotti.
Oh yeah. I'm coming to see you, Mr. Assante. Let's go.
All aboard the Armand train.
God, it's so
Next stop, Ithaca.
Oh God, I don't think we can top that one. Want to go into socials?
Well, first I was going to ask if you had any suggestions.
Oh yeah, I have no earthly idea. I'll say, like I said, one of the big inspirations, I'm sure, for the 2012 one was The Raid, which is I believe a Chinese film. But it's just like, it's basically the same plot when you get right down to it. It's this like police squad goes into a building tracking like a very basic crime. They get tied up into this giant drug kingpins operation, and they have to fight their way to the top. It's not sci-fi, it's kung fu, and it's brutal, and it's very good. Other than that, I mean, like, hell, watch the original RoboCop for the 95 one, replacement for the 95 one. It does a better job for establishing it does a better job just establishing basically everything. Like, a message, a cool, like, dystopia that actually, like, means something, just the crazy shit going on. I still don't like it myself, but I think if, you like that sort of thing, go for it.
Mm-hmm. I think Paul Verhoeven in general has a decent track record of things like that, where a lot of people be like, you know what, that movie's not for me, but it means something. It's pretty, like Starship Troopers, I know is like that. Where it's like, well, I don't like it, but I see what it's doing.
Yeah,
the satire
I like that movie
presenting.
And I like that movie well enough. I just don't like Heinlein.
Yeah, I got you. I know what you mean.
Yeah, that fucking weird libertarian prick. But this has been Heinlein Cast. Jesus Christ. We just need to have an entire episode where we just bash authors we don't like.
I mean, I would be fine with that. We had a talk about doing a whole episode just talking about video game movies. We should do just a special one time where we feel like we have time to record another episode, and it's just like, let's just talk about a specific topic. We'll bring notes, and it'd be fun.
Authors whose works we really wish would stop influencing media.
I got a view.
Yeah, I mean, same. Trust me.
As for myself, I had forgotten what section we were in.
Yeah.
As for myself, I like to do spotlights every now and then. The director of the 2012 Dredd, Pete Travis, really hadn't done anything that I'd seen, so I can't really recommend any of it because I don't know what it is.
But
okay. Danny Cannon, who directed 95's Judge Dredd, he did a couple of things, and one of those being he executive produced, wrote, and directed Gotham, the series, which I saw the first season and a half of, and I enjoyed it. So
I did not.
I know a couple other people, and it's sort of split between them as well, and for varying reasons. But I liked it just fine. But the other thing I wanted to bring up is a better sci-fi Stallone film, I think, is Demolition Man. Which I
forgot about that one.
Definitely recommend watching.
Yeah, that one I saw a while ago now, but yeah, that's a really good one.
It's a lot of fun. I like Mr. Assante, but I think Wesley Snipes is a better villain as well.
Oh yeah.
I like that. I like that movie a lot, and it's actually funny. It doesn't have strange comic relief. in it trying to make quippy jokes.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, what if the world was like just super PC, but like not in the PC you expect?
Yeah, what if the theme song for Armored Hot Dog commercials played on the radio? What if that was our level of nostalgia? And hey, we're actually kind of there.
Oh, God. Dystopian films are not supposed to be predictions of the future. They're supposed to be condemnations of the present. Stop proving them right.
It's just too easy to take those films as suggestions. It's like, ooh, what if we did do that?
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm not hopeful of the future.
Neither am I, but we'll trek it together.
Woo! Cynicism and spite. Let's go.
But if you want to trek the future with us, go ahead and keep posted by following us on any of your podcasting platforms: iTunes, Google Play, Spreaker, Podbay, Stitcher. We're on all those things. But our host, of course, is Anchor. Thank you, Anchor.
Thanks, Anchor.
Easy to use, easy to upload your podcasts, and they do exporting to other podcast services for you. So I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry that our podcast isn't going to end up on Apple or anything like that. Which is lovely.
Aspiring podcasters, great platform.
Fantastic. And go ahead and, send us an email at theyremadeit@gmail.com if you have any suggestions, questions, comments, condemnations, or just general, what's up. I'll respond to a what's up.
Yeah. We're nice people, we swear.
Yeah, I promise.
Yeah. If you're an Ernest Cline fan...
Don't lead with that.
Yeah, don't come out the gate with that one. That's like going into a room just start swinging.
You were aggro as soon as you sent that email. Let me the moment you decided that you weren't going to delete what you typed.
Imagine someone who walked into a bar swinging a baseball bat around yelling, "I want friends." That's what you're doing.
You probably wouldn't make it. Well, depending on the state, you might. But and also go ahead and follow us at It Remade on Twitter, and They Remade It at Instagram, where podcast updates get posted. I make full circle diagrams and post them. I put movie posters up for things we've watched, things we've recommended, possible future episodes, just everything like that. We've been getting a lot more interaction on things like that, so go ahead and join us over there.
Yeah, we are very movable, and we will listen to suggestions if they're interesting enough.
We have, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our whole lot.
Yep, that's the end of it. I don't have any more socials. I'm as social as I can be. I'm drained.
Yeah, this is the most social interaction I can deal with on a monthly basis. I'm going to go crawl back into my hole and find some nice historical films.
Yes.
Maybe find that Odyssey film.
I hope we can. It was a TV miniseries, which are notoriously... It depends, I guess, on the network and who was involved on whether you can actually find them or not. So,
considering the main character is Armand Assante, I don't know if this is going to be an easy fight to find. So
maybe
I might be needing to put on my metaphorical explorer's gear to go find this thing, which is coincidental to the movie, I guess. Oh my god, I'm doing the same role as Armand Assante! Hooray!
Well, it says that the series was nominated for a Satellite and a Golden Globe, so maybe it won't be as hard as we think.
And it made for a nice day for my 9th grade literature class.
I'm sure you all had fun. As much fun as you can have sitting at a desk.
Yeah, and just trying to learn. It's like, oh, we'll watch the Odyssey so we can learn. Like now that you've read the book, it's like, I'm gonna go to sleep. Yeah, as always, this has been Odyssey cast. Jesus Christ.
We've had fun talking about Homer.
I will avoid the dough joke.
Thank you very much.
There was a real temptation. I was like, no, we've had enough ham for one day.
I love that Simpsons joke where where they're talking about the Odyssey, and he says, "Remember when I had an Odyssey?" And he picks up a framed photo of a car. And I guess that the model of the car was an Odyssey. I thought that was funny.
You know, you could be making that up, and I would have no idea. Oh, God. I think that's enough.
All right, bye. I'm hanging up.
Okay. Well, as always, I am your law bringer, Stuart.
And I am Rob Schneider.
TV's Rob Schneider. Oh, God. Well, have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Why did you judge me?
You killed innocent people.
The means to an end.
You started a massacre.
I caused the revolution.
You betrayed the law.